So here I am parked up for the night in my van. The fire's lit. I have a little bottle of something warming by the fire. And I've got the hills in the distance and the trees behind me. I've just been out collecting wood for the fire. It's starting to get hot here, so I better be quick. So I thought I'd give you a little wee bedtime story. And I got to thinking which one, and I thought I would tell you this one. So once upon a time there was a boy whose name was Tom Poker. But the problem with Tom was a very lazy boy. In fact, he spent most of his time sat on his sofa doing nothing. And one day Tom's mum, well, she was fed up of it, you see, and she came into the house and she said, "Tom, get up off that sofa and do some work." Well, Tom, he quite liked the idea of doing work, you see. So he jumped up and he said, "Well, what would you like me to do?" She said, "Tom, winter's not past and it's still cold outside and there's not enough wood for the fire. So I want you to take this axe and go up to the top of that hill and chop down a tree." Well, Tom thought this sounded like a really good idea, so he picked up the axe, he put it over his shoulder and he set off up the hill. But while he was walking, and Tom being Tom, he got to thinking. He wondered to himself, "Do you know, I feel really strong with this axe over the top of my shoulder here, but I wonder really, truly, what is the strongest thing in the world?" Well, I'm sure you've got lots of answers yourself, but I can tell you this. Because Tom was thinking so much, he wasn't looking where he was going. And he was walking over a puddle of water, but it was so cold outside that it had turned to ice. And of course, when you walk on ice, there's a good chance you'll slip. And that's exactly what happened to Tom. He slipped, he went over his head and he landed flat on his bum. And I'll tell you, the pain wasn't what shocked him. It was the cold. It made him go, "Oh!" It took his breath away. Well, he got to thinking to himself, if the ice is so strong it can take my breath away, it must be the strongest thing in the world. I better tell it. So Tom turned to the ice. He said, "Ice, ice, you are strong." And the ice looked up at Tom and it said in a very icy voice, "You can depend on it, Tom." That's the best ice voice I can do, I'm afraid. I'm sure you could do better. But Tom said, "Hold on a second now, ice. Now, I have noticed that every time the sun comes out in the sky, it's so hot it melts you and you run away. So by rights, the sun's stronger than you. I better tell it." So Tom turned to the sun and he shouted, "Sun, sun, you are strong." Well, the sun turned its great big face down at Tom and it said in a very sunny voice, "You can depend on it, Tom." That's my best sun voice, but of course I'm sure you could do better. But however, Tom looked at the sun and he said, "Now hold on a second, son," getting all carried away, thinking you're the strongest thing in the world. "I have noticed that when the clouds gather, they cover you up and you hide away. So by rights, the clouds are stronger than you." So Tom thought he'd tell them. He looked at the clouds and he said, "Clouds, clouds, you are strong." And the clouds, they billowed and they bellowed and they said in a cloudy voice, "You can depend on it, Tom." Was that all right for you? But Tom said, "Hold on a second, clouds," getting carried away, thinking you're the strongest thing in the world. "I've noticed that when the north wind blows, well, it picks you up and sends you over the top of the hills. So by rights, the wind's stronger than you." So Tom thought he'd better tell it. He ran to the top of the hill and he faced the north wind and he said, "Wind, wind, you are strong." And the north wind, it blew and it said, "You can depend on it, Tom." It was the wind after all. However, Tom said, "Hold on a second, wind," getting carried away, thinking you're the strongest thing in the world. "I've noticed this hill I'm stood on, it can stand up to you and you can't blow it over. So by rights, the hill's stronger than you." So Tom thought he'd tell it. He said, "Hill, hill, you are strong." And the hill looked up at Tom and it said in a very hill-like voice, "You can depend on it, Tom." Was that all right? And Tom said, "Hold on a second, hill," getting all carried away, thinking you're the strongest thing in the world. "I've noticed that this tree here can grow on the top of you, but you can't grow on the top of the tree. So by rights it's stronger than you, so I better tell it. So Tom turned to the tree and he said, I'm sure you know the words by now, so you could probably join in. He said, "Tree, tree, you are strong." And the tree, it turned its branches towards Tom and it said in a very tree-like voice, "You can't keep on it then." Tom said, "But hold on a second, tree. I've got a double-handed axe." And he took that axe and he started to swing. Chop! Well, every time he hit the tree a little bit, that tree fell down until eventually there was no tree at all. All there was an old stump and a big pile of logs. And Tom stood there with the axe over his shoulder and he said, "You see, I'm the strongest thing in the world. I'm stronger than the tree. I'm stronger than the hill. I'm stronger than the wind. I'm stronger than the clouds. I'm even stronger than the sun itself." And with that, he gave out a great big yahoo! And he ran down the hill, forgetting all about the wood. But of course, he forgot about something else. Can you guess? Of course, he forgot about the ice. And as he ran over that ice, he slipped. He turned over his head and he landed, flat on his bum. But it wasn't the pain of landing that gave him it. It was the coldness. It took his breath away. And that's the end of the story of Tom Poker. Good night.